Right.
Okay. It's 10 o'clock on Friday, March 20th, 2026. There being 100% attendance, which is more than a quorum of the audit subcommittee meeting, hereby deeming the meeting open. And I think the first order of business is the approval of minutes of the meeting of January 3rd, 2025. For the motion to approve, anybody have any comments? No, and motion to approve. Motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Next, we're turning to sort of the discussion of the management responses to the recommendations made by CLA, Clifton Lewis and Allen, arising from their review of the school's procurement to pay processes and controls. I just want to thank the schools, and these folks as well, and Brian, let's see, for seeing through this. I know it's not a typical project, but we think it's got some good important long-term value to us. And I think what we're going to have is Sean is going to take us through their responses to the recommendations. I think it'll be somewhat informal and interactive. And at the end, we might come out with additional questions that you might not have covered. And also, I wouldn't be remiss if I didn't also mention that Pat Morana is also here, the budget director. So she's also here from Vincent PS as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sean.
Okay. First of all, we're happy to be here. We value the input from CLA, and we realize that internal controls are of most importance. All right. So why don't I start with the org chart?
Yep.
Okay. So it's a 3 pages. First one is a typical org chart. So I'm Sean, Chief Director of Finance and Operations for New Canaan Public Schools. I've been in education for 12, 13 years. Prior to that, I was with IBM for 33 years, all in accounting and finance. The organization as such, I report to Dr. Lindsay, who reports obviously to the Board of Ed. Reporting to me, and I'll just stop there and say, what I'm responsible for is the business office, technology, food services, facilities. I think I missed one, right?
Business.
Huh?
Yeah,
The business office.
Fine.
So that's the operations piece.
Okay.
All right. So reporting directly to me is Pat Marin, the budget director. As I mentioned, she's got an internal controls, internal audit experience. She's very knowledgeable in the subject. When she is the budget director, she's the one who creates that 150-page budget book. She also, her department is responsible for creating the monthly measurement reports, the statement of accounts. So she's got a lot on the plate, and her team. She's got a 4-person team. Nelson Chan is accountant. Good morning. Lillian Farkas is our purchasing coordinator. Lee Patassi, payroll. And Katie O'Neill is our accounts payable AR coordinator. Under that, the next 2 pages are really.
We don't have to go through.
Yeah,
we'll read these. It's very helpful. Thank you for
that. I think
scope of duties.
Self-explanatory. The next 2 pages, what everybody does, and what their title is, what their
right.
Self-explanatory.
I just, if you don't mind, 2 quick questions. So has this sort of been the structure for a while, or do you have any approved but open other positions, or this kind of it? There's nothing pending.
The only other position I didn't mention is my assistant, Roberta Cooper, who does more than the secretarial duties, but she is also an interface with Kerma whenever we have a contract that we need, Kerma to look at. She's our interface with Kerma.
Okay.
So, and in fact, she was the one I nominated for a award from Kerma, and we actually won it. she was the reason why I applied for it in July.
Okay,
We just found out we got an award and a $2,500 payment, which we donated to our cookie fund. I'm not sure if you know what the cookie fund is.
no,
But a generous donor in New Canaan has given $25,000 for kids who cannot afford snacks, cookies, and so on like that. So it could be tough for kids going up to a cashier and not getting a cookie or a snack. Someone behind me, see, oh, the reason you're not getting a cookie or snack is you're free and reduced. So try to eliminate that with this fund. And that award, $2,500 went into that fund.
Right.
So supplement that.
okay, good. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions about the org chart? No?
No, okay.
Okay, so what I thought I would do is, rather than talk to the actual 20+ page report, I thought I would put all the findings, recommendations, and management comments into one file. And then with a column that includes target conclusion. So I'll go through one of them, and I apologize because I'm gonna read a lot of it. I hope you don't hold me.
And I'm wondering if like, I noticed you got timelines here. Do you need additional, I think if you go through and you've got a timeline, if there's stuff you sort of additional help you need with this, that's the time to.
Well, a lot of it might be the
And what you can do with
documentation updates, so,
Yeah.
that's the first thing in the in finance, we need to update our, management policy. I know there's an option that we probably could have, solicited help from CLA, but I think we're gonna try to do it on our own.
Okay.
So, save some money.
Can I just add to
Yeah,
that,
sure.
Sean? So we would like to maintain ownership of the process, while also managing our resources efficiently. It doesn't mean that we will not consult CLA, if we need to consult them with our final project document. I think that creates a balance of support for the quality and being prudent with the budget. So.
Yeah, and I mean, in all cases, I view, schools in the town, no matter what, they own the document, they own the process. And so, if an outside party comes in to help, at the end of the day, the school or the town, they have to stand behind it. Right? So I don't feel like someone coming in initially to provide some extra support. It's not like you're seeding anything. They might have some best practices that you might have thought of, but it might be helpful to at least run it by them when you're
Absolutely.
done. But okay.
And I should have started at the beginning that overall, we received a satisfactory rating. I think there was one concern about the timing of approving the checks. And we'll go into that a little bit. We're gonna make a change to the process.
Okay.
So the first finding has several sub-findings. Additional purchasing policy components not documented. Recommendation is to enhance the existing policy. And first one, 1A, purchasing workflow. Management comments, the purchasing workflow approval thresholds are configured within our Munis system. We will update the purchasing manual to formally document and align with the established workflow. Timeline of 6 to 9 months to do that.
Okay, and let's get our nomenclature straight. There's the high level BOE purchasing policy. And then there's a more granular, it's more like an SOP, refers to policy manual. So are you saying you're putting in the manual or in the overall, the higher level policy?
So when we say policy, we're saying we're defining expectations, principles, and accountability, right? That is the what and why. And when we say procedures, we're saying steps and controls. So that's we're saying procedures.
Okay.
I think this keeps the policy at a high level, and while putting the details and in the procedure, but we can still adapt quickly if we need to for the policy.
So are you talking about like this document in the first one, or are you talking about the procedures manual?
Our procedures manual.
Okay, it's just that when it says purchasing manual, it should be higher, right? That's what it's so when you say manual, you mean the procedures manual,
Yes, that's where the detail will be.
which should be. Yeah.
1B were purchasing exceptions. The management comment, we have implemented a bid exception form within the purchasing process to document, support, approved exemptions from competitive bidding. All purchasing exceptions are formally documented using the bid exception form and require prior approval from both the budget director and the director of finance and operations before a requisition can be submitted in the system. This front-end approval process serves as a strong preventive control, ensuring that exceptions are reviewed and justified in advance rather than after the fact. And that has been.
So just, Sean, so this was something that, you did shortly after sort of the recommendation came out, you said, hey, let's get this form, okay.
Exactly.
Very good, so you already reacted to it.
May I just add that when we developed the form, we did run it by CLA to make sure that we've covered all bases and they were in agreement with the form.
Okay.
Okay,
1C centralized contract framework. While a manual process is currently in place, management recognizes that decentralized tracking may present oversight challenges and is actively evaluating the cost and resource requirements and feasibility of implementing the centralized contract management system, Tyler Content and TCM.
did we, and maybe, thank you, Dana, it's great that you're here as well, do we get any scale? Because I think Ann was saying they've started to implement on a pilot basis, the contract management system for one of the departments. And you hear you referencing, oh, well, we don't have a license, do we get scale? Or is it two separate contracts?
It's a Tyler contract.
It's
so
two separate contracts, yeah.
But they must recognize, so the total town spend, hopefully.
We're in the process of getting a quote from them. So
Okay.
I will work on that.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things to do.
negotiate.
After living in Asia for many years, I negotiate everything.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, yeah, I was a little bit surprised when I know Ann said that they were implementing a pilot for it. And then you said, that's obviously not, what if that we get some scale on it, okay. Hey, Brian, good morning. Oh, that's
Morning.
into the motion. Perfect. No.
1D vendor performance evaluation, while the district does not maintain a formal centralized vendor scorecard, vendor performance is actively managed at the department level. To strengthen consistency and oversight, the district will formalize expectations for documenting significant vendor issues, specifically those impacting service costs and timelines. We will implement a shared tracking mechanism accessible to procurement and business office personnel. This approach ensures that vendor performance concerns are consistently documented, monitored, and escalated as appropriate, providing visibility across departments and establishing a clear audit trail while remaining appropriately scaled for the district size and procurement activity. We gave that 3 months.
So what that would mean in practice is we're going to put a consistent baseline in place, right? If there's any vendor issues such as these deadlines, service quality concerns, the department will then document that in a shared tracking mechanism. And if they need to escalate it further, they can then discuss it with the business office and we can review the vendor in question. So instead of creating a vendor scorecard for each vendor, which we feel doesn't create value, right? We would be looking at it from an exception base. And this would, I think it creates a great balance between what the auditors are recommending.
So who's going to actually do this?
So our office will have oversight of that. We will manage the shared spreadsheet and procurement individuals will then enter the information.
So if somebody at the lower levels is noticing this vendor never delivers on time or doesn't deliver shoddy product, whatever, they are going to be putting it in and it will flow up through this system.
Yes.
And historically, we haven't had one.
Right, and so that's
But
why.
it's just, yeah, I don't expect it would, because otherwise it means you have really done your vetting on first. Yeah. obviously, but. Right, but it can happen, it's, I think.
Conflict of interest disclosure procedures.
Can we stay with, I just wanna
Sure.
ask you a few questions, because I know that your management comments changed in as far as the
Mhm.
form. So do you guys feel comfortable with the $25,000 and $50,000 thresholds? As far as the,
With the current policies?
yes,
The current policies are serving us very well.
you haven't had any issues with those,
No,
okay?
wanting conflict of interest disclosure procedure and ethics enforcement. Certified faculty and administrators of Connecticut are expected to adhere to Connecticut Code of Professional Responsibility for teachers and administrators respectively. Additionally, all faculty and staff must adhere to all Board of Ed policies and procedures.
So NA, I guess that's a soft no, right? Yes. So I guess one of the things, technically, I mean, my understanding is that technically the town and Buchanan ethics policy does apply to all employees, regardless of both town and school. That's what the document says. So that I just want people to be aware of that. And I was looking at it, and it's not just like vendor conflict of interest, which is really good, and it's a good reminder, and maybe it's already covered in your the faculty professional code, but things like use of town school property, treat gifts, stuff like that. I don't know if that's what also, and I'm saying that was a good reminder in addition to just, conflict of interest stuff, so.
Those things are all covered in Board of Education policy. There's gift policies, there's nepotism policies, there's other types of policies that are all for Board of Ed policies. And the state, in order to maintain certification, has its own code of ethics, et cetera. So while certainly, and it's almost like the town has its, and they work together, they're almost the same things. And we're not saying we're exempt from those policies, but adding more paperwork requirements, having more sign-offs, et cetera, isn't necessary, and I think it's just another piece of paperwork essentially that could be falling behind. But we understand that they apply, and similarly, the Board of Education policies, as the Board of Education employees, they are all held to those higher standards.
So not only the BOE, not only the board of it, but
The schools,
the schools as well.
Oh yeah, when I say Board of Ed policies, that applies to every
everybody,
employee.
all the employees.
When you say sign off, what do you mean by that?
Well, part of what they had talked about was an annual sign off on, confirmation to policies, et cetera, to the ethics policy.
Right, so
And so I'm saying we don't need that, we conform to them. But I think adding a sign off is, would be unnecessary.
and do they sign off originally when they're hired?
They understand that violation of any Board of Education policies can result in termination. And then if they're hired, they must conform to all Board of Ed policies that apply.
And do they receive a copy of what
They
the
do.
policies are?
And it's reviewed.
Cause I think, sort of a middle path would be, at least they get it disseminated, with a blast email reminder, here are the policies you must, at least annually a refresher, because some people might forget, right? So. The thought, right? Give it that.
I don't mean it to be trite, but in a way, we sort of conform to a higher entity here, right? Because it's the state that holds the certifications that has its, administrator and teacher appropriate policies, et cetera, around all of these things. And so violation of them can result in a loss of certification. And so all educators know that, we're taught that, it's a part of what we do.
What about the staff?
Yeah,
That are not
and it's-
teachers or educators?
Yeah, similarly, they're told, and it's a part of the onboarding process, going through the policies, et cetera. We certainly can look at whether it's in an employee handbook or something else that gets reviewed them regularly. Again, I'm happy to sort of dovetail it, but what I want to be careful of is
Not duplicating.
Yeah.
But not duplicating.
And I don't think we're asking you to do.
No, I don't know, I did.
But it would be good to have it in it, if you're updating your employee handbooks all the time, to put that in.
Yeah, they're dynamic, right? Unless they're online, it's not hard to do. We can put a reference to it in there and just close the loop if that's helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I gave you a point, you do forget after a while, but you're,
They're a
you're doing your
little-
own job,
yeah.
not thinking about all these other
Yeah,
things.
I agree.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay.
One F, sustainability and local preference policies. The district will review and revise the purchasing policy to address the use of local vendors and environmentally preferable vendors as recommended. This guidance will provide a framework for considering these factors in vendor decisions and allowing the district to maintain flexibility to select vendors based on cost, quality, availability, and alignment with program needs. For 6 months. One G, vendor department and suspension procedures. While the district does not maintain a formal department of suspension list, vendor performance is actively monitored at the department level and through a shared tracking mechanism within the district. Significant or recurring vendor issues are documented and reviewed by the business office, which informs decisions regarding continued use of the vendor. Vendors demonstrating repeated or material performance concerns may be subject to restricted use or removal from future procurement consideration based on undocumented performance history and district review. This approach provides a structured and documented method for addressing vendor performance concerns while remaining appropriately scaled to the district's operations. We put that up for us. 1A second duty.
Wait, hold on, so just make sure I understand, so what's gonna happen, I mean, is it a document, is it a form, what is this?
So this would be in conjunction with your shared spreadsheet for the vendor list for
Okay,
sorry.
And it goes back to what you were talking. about.
Exactly, so it links to the vendor performance. So it links to the vendor performance, so that would be that one shared spreadsheet. So they can reference it, and if there is a concern on their services, we would just put do not use or discontinues, something to that effect.
Can I ask a question? Is it true that the vendors are so close to the user in our process that if somebody was underperforming, we just for some reason?
Exactly, that's what we do that's what we do currently, but in order
Because
to.
it's not like we're centrally ordering all these things that then flow down to.
But then,
consultants.
let's say one school orders it and it's bad, you want the other schools to know that that's a bad vendor.
Correct, but for the most part, we do have a purchasing coordinator, and if there is a concern, that individual pretty much knows what's going on in the school. If there's a vendor that we shouldn't be using.
I'm not saying this is a good idea, I'm just, here, just in our system, right, we're not so large that we're centrally ordering things away from the person who's going to use them. Like the person using them is involved in that, so.
And it's more just trying to consolidate that person's information into one place that other people can then use as well.
Sure, and that's right, which you must be
Yeah.
encouraging thing that like how all this happens.
And we do have an example of something like this that happened recently. It was with IT for our cell phone service.
Easy guy.
Yes, and so they weren't delivering, and we ended up looking for another vendor. It's part of what we have.
So we never forget that we're accustomed to service. I guess that's kind of, okay.
so related, in your Tyler management system, whatever, is there a module just for like vendors? Do you have that?
Vendors, correct. We have vendors in there. Yes.
Okay, so it's a separate module though, with it.
Yes. it
Okay, I
is.
just didn't know if it had the ability, because whenever I hear spreadsheets, I get a little nervous, right? You said spreadsheet, well, the spreadsheet, and I didn't know if it was something you could house centrally.
Right,
to
so
be able to
that's-
access it.
so we have that, so the spreadsheet that we're referring to, that shared spreadsheet
Yep.
is just an initial phase. We're documenting as there, if there is inappropriate use of that vendor, right?
Okay,
Then if we need to disable that vendor, we will automatically disable them in Munis.
Yeah, in Munis
Yeah,
system.
we cannot delete, but we can certainly disable them.
okay.
If we always have to keep it in the system.
Yeah, because you got
Yeah.
transactions.
Exactly, yes.
Segregation of duties and internal controls. Management has considered the auditor's recommendation and determined that Both internal audit procedures are more appropriately maintained outside of the policy. Policy defines the control expectations and monitoring requirements at a high level, while detailed audit procedures are documented within internal audit protocols to preserve flexibility and support a risk-based approach. This structure is consistent with established government practices and allows for more efficient updates as risks and priorities evolve. That was an action.
So in this one, you're basically saying, so CLA is like elevated and put in the actual policy, right? And you're saying you've kind of got it already covered in more of your manuals and your SOPs. Is that what I'm calling here? Because I do, and this is one of the things I worry about for municipalities and schools, just you know, you just may not have the head count, but I do worry about segregation of duties, right? And so I think one of their comments was, you know, theoretically you could have, I don't know, if it's AP supervisor could initiate something. I don't know. There seemed to be some
Where
potential.
somebody could initiate and also.
Yeah, and that's something that I wanna make sure, and I know you look at the municipal approval levels quarterly, right? And you can see who's changed them, but I still don't, I get nervous when I find out that someone can like, you know, enter approve it or these kind of thing, you know?
So I think the thing that you're referring to, and I've been away from it for a while, so please correct me if I'm wrong, again, I apologize for the thing, is the comment that they made about the AP checks. Or, you know, the check run, but what they missed was that nothing is printed before it's approved by Pat. There are two approvers on it. There's nothing that goes through, right, the system without those two people taking a look at it. You know, the internal controls we have in place really were strengthened, I guess about 7 years ago, give or take, when we worked very closely with the town's auditor at the time, Marcia and others, and literally reviewed policy by policy, went through all of them, looked at to make sure that they were as tight and as appropriate as they should be, could be. So I think that really the difference here simply is they want what we're doing written formally in policy, we say it's more appropriately written in a procedure.
And I think that's.
And it is written in a procedure, so it's not that, you know, it doesn't exist, it's just the difference between policy and procedure is timing, flexibility.
No, I get it. I guess the one thing I'm sure my colleagues here, do we need to have at least some sort of reference linkage that this policy has to say, you know, further details are more fully described in.
And the procedure.
Yeah,
Yeah, it could be a process manual.
Perfect, I mean, that's, they do exist and they're there and they're strong and whatever, it's just, if you put them into board. Maybe this is just nomenclature around policy for us versus others, and Board of Ed policy, it takes along its two readings, and you have to let them sit for a month between the time the first reading and the second reading in order to be voted on, etc. To change the policies, yes. And so we put things like that in procedure so that we can evolve them and then we bring them to the board in discussion, but it doesn't have to wait for implementation for a month, etc.
Is there any reference right now in the policy to the more detailed
Procedures.
procedure manuals? That you
I don't have them in front of me, but I mean, that's something we can add.
I think
that's something we need hope to do, right, we can add, you know, reference and we go, in some of our policies, it does say, you know, the procedures, you know, will follow, so if not, we can add that. That's neat, that's just to, like you said, to link them,
You
make
gotta
sure
have
that
Yeah.
they're all connected.
And I think you ought to have it in certain ways, so the policy manual's got reference, you know, this conforms to the overall policy of the policy, that's to say.
Right.
You know,
Details
we have details, you know,
Right.
so.
Yeah, and again, it may say it in their policies already, but I'll touch on it.
And if it's already in the procedures manual, then you cover it off then.
Yeah, because what happens, you know, again, we've got our policies and then, so if it's policy 3000, then there'll be an administrative regulation, AR 3000, that goes right behind it in the manual, et cetera. That's again, that's the procedures of the administrative regulation. So that's, again, it may just be a language piece more than anything, but we'll make sure that it's circular.
And the timing?
That's easy, let's do that today.
It's coming then.
So,
Zero to 1 month.
yeah, it's zero on time. Yeah.
And everything they're recommending here is in the procedures manual, basically.
And Bill, I hear you when you were saying that as far as an administrator can put in a rec, they cannot. There is user fields where we do not allow them to do that. So it is the administrative assistant enter the requisition. Then from that requisition, it goes to the administrator to approve. And if it is more than $10,000, it has a secondary approval, which is Sean. Anything 20, anything 15 and above, there's a tertiary review, which is Brian. So there are levels of controls, and not everybody can enter a rec. It
Right.
resides with the administrative assistant for that department only as well. So not everybody has access to high school. It would only be a Linsky that would have that access. And it remains only for that high school. So it's segregated in that fashion.
Okay, 1I, procurement, transparency and reporting. The district maintains comprehensive written procedures that cover all aspects of competitive bidding and RFQ process. This approach keeps the board policy appropriately strategic while ensuring that all detailed requirements of the competitive requirement process are thoroughly documented and consistently followed.
Again, I think this needs some counter referencing, right? And one of the things I wanted to, and I don't think we really get into it, but you know, I think my understanding is that you need to get 3 for $5,000 to $10,000. You know, I mean, things that aren't part of the exemption or exception was 5 to 10, like you need 3 verbal. And I forgot to ask you, do you document that 3 verbal that came in, the 3 verbal quotes?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I bet you said it before, and I couldn't remember,
Yes, we
so.
do. Yep, that's a
Okay,
requirement.
so all levels, whether it's the 3 formal written, the 3 verbal, or, you know, 15K with a sealed bid, all that's completely documented, so someone can come back and say, okay.
Everything's scanned in TCM. So a requisition, when administrative assistant enters a requisition, they need a supporting document for the quote. So they will upload everything. I will ask everybody to upload everything that's pertinent to that requisition.
Okay.
And you referenced the TCM.
That is,
So that's it, right?
so we have that in the purchasing model.
Oh,
Don't have it in the contract model.
Oh, okay.
So that is something that we are evaluating and obtaining quotes on.
So you tag it on as part of the purchasing, it's sort of cumbersome probably, but, okay.
Did we get a quote for that yet?
Yeah, I believe so, but I just want to double check. I think, yeah, I do have it.
Okay, so finding number 2, current user capabilities and AP process impede segregation of duties. Recommendation, automate AP warrant approvals and enterprise update. So this is the one we kind of referred to earlier in finance as well. To strengthen internal controls, management is evaluating enhancements within the Munis system to ensure that all payment processing activities are subject to system enforced workflow approvals. This enhancement will require appropriate supervisory review and approval prior to payment issuance, reducing reliance on manual controls and strengthening segregation of duties within the automated environment. 3 to 6 months.
I'm not quite, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what this is saying, unless you guys have looked at it.
This is the one with a check that Katie is allowed to print a check. So prior to her printing a check, we are looking into
Oh, right.
putting an enhancement in there where she can't move forward until I
till the approval is made, you can't
yes, in
print the
the
check.
workflow. Yeah, so we are going to put a workflow in the system rather than having it paper based.
Right.
So we're looking into that, and she can't move forward until I say yes, approve in the system. Currently, we do it by approving it, right, on paper, correct. But now we want to enhance our feature, our system by having it in Munis.
Yeah.
So that's gonna take more time.
Right, exactly.
It's gonna be going check by check by check in the system versus going through a vehicle.
Okay, the invoices and
Right, and then checking them back before they go out as you do. So, okay, so that's, the cost will be whatever and the time and.
Have you looked at trying to phase out checks and limit ACH?
That is actually one of our projects. We are in the process of it now. Katie, who is our AP coordinator, is heading that. We are anticipating rollout by fiscal year 2027 at the beginning. We want to do at least one check first, and then from there, kind of batch it out, because it is going to take time to do this.
Yeah.
To be very careful with these too. Right?
Exactly,
It's one of
that's-
the
yeah.
biggest scams out there. It's-
Right.
It needs some really good.
So
Really good.
yeah, so I've written a process, procedures on how we're doing it and how there's segregation of duty. And I wanted to run it by Catherine through is it?
Yeah, Catherine,
Yeah, David, sorry, I had CLA on my mind. But yeah, I wanted to run it by her to make sure, does this make sense to her?
Okay, and that, to your point earlier, Ryan, I mean, net, I kind of like ACH on balance for some odd reasons, but I agree.
The cybersecurity is an issue.
But that was one of my questions, I'll bring it here. How do you ensure, like, I'm still not clear, who can go into the system and change like a vendor's bank account information?
So that would be
And who, I mean, can anybody just on their own, like, could you go into it by yourself?
so it would be our purchasing person. We have to run through it first, right? And see how it works, but right now it is our purchasing person that can make changes in the vendor file.
So that's it.
And does that flag it to you or to somebody?
Right. I would have to look at that, but maybe we can put a mechanism where it flags it, or I have to approve it, create a
You
workflow.
definitely want
Yeah,
that.
we want to create a workflow, because it is a banking sensitive,
Because I could change
data.
it to their bank account.
Absolutely.
And just starting out, ACH takes quite a bit of time.
Uh-huh.
So you get some pushback from some of the vendors who like getting checks for some reason. But gathering all the ABA numbers and account numbers and some of them takes time.
Does.
And then as far as changing it, that's a whole nother process.
It's a whole nother control.
So I will say, so payroll, right, it's direct deposit
Right.
payroll, et cetera. And that's, Alini probably has the strictest protocols around making any changes there. And a couple times a week, she'll get emails from people purporting to be somebody else. I mean, your account, please change, and it's always a phone call, it's always in writing, it's always, face to face, everything else. So those same, as we consider the move, those same
Controls need to be-
controls, right? We've learned quite a bit through that. She's been very thorough.
Yes.
And she's positive, she's using that for 1,000 people, a couple times a month, so.
But you have the same risk with somebody saying, oh, calling up and saying, oh, guess what? We moved our location, send the checks here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You need to talk to a human being, well, you need to call them, like, so what?
Verify the
Someone,
new address.
it's not call the number they
Right.
send you, you're looking them up, you're going to the file, you're making sure you're
You're
calling
talking
the
to
right
somebody
number.
else, right?
Yeah, you're not talking to the person sending the email, exactly, there's different, and again, Alini has been very good with this. And what we've had to do some training for our PTCs as well. What happens is they will sometimes get emails from people who say, hey, waiting for the check for the costumes for, Nemo Junior that just, we just finished up last Thursday. Great show, so proud of you. And they literally will talk about the show and have pictures of the show, asking them to send me the check, and here's the routing.
And it's fraud.
And it's fraud, yeah. It's very sophisticated.
Yes.
Scary so.
Okay, finding number 3, vendor management practices.
So I say we just put it in an envelope and send cash. So,
Okay,
yeah.
no, I got more to go.
We go
Checks by themselves, we've had situations.
We've had some problems, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, we get.
so I was just doing an address in Stanford, and somebody goes into the mailbox, takes it, goes to
And wash
the
it.
bank and cashes it. So we got called the police.
Not necessarily us directly, but our company that oversees 220. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a number of people in town that have had that happen, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Post boxes.
But ultimately, the bank's not requiring ID to cash the check, that's. You should.
We use positive pay.
Yes, we do.
We got payroll.
Yes.
Right?
And even with the AP checks.
Yeah.
We do
Plus
positive
pay.
as well.
Let's see, so I mentioned, the finding vendor management practices could be improved. The recommendation was to improve vendor management processes. So that's 3A.
3A was
As
vendor
far as
file.
the vendor file cleanup.
Yeah.
So, and we've done that. We've done that, so any vendor with no activity in the last 3 years, we.
Deactivated.
Yes,
But you can't-
We can't really-
Right, for the week, then you're gonna store.
Right.
exactly.
So why are sort of the 2 and 3 are, why are the NAs then? Because you're just, you know, after 3B and 3C. You put it as NA, right?
Well, 3B is
Oh,
the process for adding new vendors. So it's a different topic.
okay.
Well,
All right, sorry, I got it myself.
Okay.
So I know you completed it, but are you going to make it a policy that you're going in there every year?
Annually, yes, it's a, yes.
Okay.
So you're changing your procedures manual or whatever it does say that.
Yes, we have that.
You use a 3-year term, so kind of those are rolling 3 years.
Yes.
But it's checked every year.
Okay, so as far as the topic of adding new vendors, we have a robust process for adding new vendors. Department requesting must fill out a Google form with the following information: vendor name, address, and a W-9. The business office will send an email with the terms and conditions, and once accepted, the purchasing coordinator will set the vendor up in minutes.
And so it's the purchasing coordinator who puts things like, if it's checks in there and where the checks get mailed to. Or, and you would envision the purchasing coordinator will help facilitate ultimately a bank accounts, you think? Putting in. I know it's getting ahead of it, because you have to thought through that fully, but.
If currently that's what they do check off, whether it's a check or an ACH payment.
Right.
And it can't live with AP because then that would there would be control issues there. So it's something to kind of I'm still thinking about how we're going to do the process and maybe actually call Anne and find out.
Because they've gotten large like ACH, which is
Right.
great.
And so that's why I would consult with them and see what best practices they've been using, and then from there run it through Catherine.
Is somebody currently, because one of the things that CLA had said was, and going back to 3B, that there's some sort of due diligence to make sure that this is a valid person and a valid. So are you doing, when you're answering this question, we have a robust process, does it include sort of making sure that vendor is legit, that there's
Right,
some
so we
sort of due
also-
diligence on them?
Yeah, so we send them the email at their work email to make sure. And also if we need to, I mentioned to the purchasing coordinator, check the website. That's one of the things that we like to do, is check the website, make sure that W-9 is legitimate, because anybody can complete a W-9. Just make sure that it has, and most of the time, most of the businesses have a W-9 already in there. Just to make sure that it coincides with the information that we have. And that the email seems legitimate based on their website.
I know it's flagged by CLA, but they were saying, you know, never make a change based on a single method of request, like phone or email. All that, I'm getting to 3C again, but I always like the idea of, you know, you call, you know somebody at the company, so you call them and they send information, and then somebody calls somebody else at that same company. It's just, you're not just dealing with one live being at this outside entity, right? You're dealing with 2 people, so just you know.
Yeah, well, actually going to number 3 there.
Yeah, 3C on vendor changes. So vendor changes require verification and documentation. Current practice ensures no vendor changes made based on a single method request. Yeah. The requester submits a vendor change form to the purchasing department. Upon receipt, the district requests a new W-9, and in some cases verifies the vendor's information against their website for consistency. All documentation related to the request, including Google vendor request change forms, is maintained in the district's files to support validity and approval of the change.
And the only thing we haven't talked about in there is the segregation of duties that somebody else looks at it too. Like just, not just you verified that the person is,
have one person do it.
and then somebody else looks, so it's,
Yeah.
So the-
that prevents the first person from doing
Right, so
something
the first person,
untoward.
the administrative assistants, they're submitting the Google form to the purchasing person. So she's the secondary person that's checking, it's not the requester that is entering the information, no.
Right, because I mean, you've talked about here a lot about what that first person does to make sure that the request is
so
real,
We
but then we wanna make sure that
Right,
somebody
so the
is
second
verifying that the first
right,
person didn't do something.
Yes,
That's what it's for, control over all,
Yeah.
all of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Go ahead.
yeah, I have a question, so, you know, on this subject, have you had any issues in regard to fraud? Or,
no, not since I've been there.
because the only reason why I say that, a situation just occurred in something else that I was working on outside the town. Where there was they had a website, they had email, they, I managed everything, you name it, they did everything, okay? So, you know, I'm just suggesting that thievery and fraud is becoming much more sophisticated. So, I don't know how you tighten this even further. I don't know what suggestions you have.
Yeah, I would probably.
Maybe make a phone call, make sure that the website and the people answering the phone are the same.
It's people were answering the phone. Okay, so, yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, you know, maybe, so not, this, again, I'm not in that sequence of thing. Vast majority of our purchases run through a couple of large national vendors.
Right, so you're talking about the that approved vendor list, the state contract?
State contract.
Yeah, so the state contract, so it's vetted by the state. So yes, we do try to.
Not all, but.
Yeah, we do
just
try to utilize that
The state
more often than
contract.
not.
Yeah, because all the.
Does the state review that quite often?
Yeah, that was my question.
Yeah, it's not,
process.
yeah, in fact, has one, and there's a couple of different lists, but they are all.
So maybe in this particular case, you know, they're doing their due diligence and you're, you know, putting the icing so-called on the cake.
We'll still do ours. but-
Right, however, with the secondary, meaning the vendors that the state does not look at, maybe you should consider some additional steps that you need to take.
Yeah, we'll give it some time, I think, that's a good suggestion, there's if you haven't seen it. There's a great movie called Bad Education. It's the story of what happened in Roslyn, Long Island. But it's connected with vendors, true story. What was going on there, it was broken by a student paper uncovered what was going on.
It was kickbacks.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's vendor specific, which is why it came to mind. So if you haven't seen it, it's a great movie. It's Hugh Jackman, it's pretty old, but all true story. And I know that Super came in afterwards and I verified it and he said absolutely everything in that is true. And yeah, so but I only mention it because the story, it's about vendor management. And it's one of the reasons why we're hyper vigilant around some of these things,
Yeah.
because you're right, that's one of the.
Well, I mean, everyone's becoming more sophisticated, so what I would suggest in this subject is for you to take some time to think about it and get back to us on that subject. Okay,
Okay.
and
Both from a manual standpoint and if you go to the.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I still look at 3C though, and I'm trying to understand why you say it's an NA, aren't you doing everything you're suggesting we do? You have it as an NA. But then you're talking about you've got all this stuff going on, right? So what are you NA to, I guess, there? NA is not,
I think is it NA because it's completed, like we.
That we're doing the process already, that's how we're
So
seeing
no
it.
action required?
Yeah.
Okay, versus not applicable, but maybe no further action required.
Okay, so I guess.
Except in this
Yeah.
particular case, we're taking extra steps.
So we'll take a look at this, we just.
Because I was wondering, it was a soft saying no, or was it we're in the process of?
so this would change.
Yeah, I think this.
Like, is it documented as well? Cause I think that's what they're saying, that this should formalize
The
the
vendor-
process for validating legitimate, everything that change, so. It's, maybe they're talking about more documentation on that.
We have a procedure.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's-
something.
we take
Some of the procedure maybe.
We shared this
Answer.
procedure with them, but I don't know if you're referring to incorporating it into policy. Where we feel like it should not live in policy, it should live in procedures.
And that, of course, is one of the challenges we have outside of they come in to do an audit. That's right. They have their way of doing things that they think is the right way, and we might be getting the same place and with a similar level of care and thought and controls, but it's not their way, so they're gonna recommend their way. So that is, as you've seen, that, and that's a little bit in here, and this may be one of those pieces, but but certainly we'll take a look. I mean,
If something can enhance and
Yeah.
improve the business control, absolutely should look at it.
and again, this is one of the advantages of having a purchasing coordinator. Which is a position we created when we eliminated a secretary position a few years ago. See, and that's for the town council for them.
Okay, finding number 4 on top of page 5. Enterprise ERP procurement capabilities not fully utilized. Recommendation is to maximize use of system capabilities, provide annual training to users. As far as the first one is AP workflow three-way match. AP maintains an effective invoice review and validation procedure to ensure accuracy and accountability prior to payment. To implement three-way match would require additional resources.
And what is that software you have to buy, or is it?
No, it's more of human resources.
Human
So I think it's important to note that in this testing area, we scored 100% in this. While we recognize this approach is in practice in certain environment is best approach, but in our case, it would shift a lot of the workload into the administrative assistant. So what we're saying here is instead of implementing the three-way, we have an alternative control which works. Basically, what happens is the all the invoices is sent centrally to the AP individual, and she then, which we want that control, we want to see all the invoices coming to us. And then we then disperse that to its respective departments, and then they review the validity of the bill along with the receiving invoice to make sure that it ties, and then it is sent to our AP coordinator for processing. And that's if we do the three-way match, it creates more work on them. But it doesn't mean that we're not looking at this, because I had a discussion with our AP coordinator. Is it something that we can somehow implement without creating additional burden on the administrative assistant staff? Because really our focus is on the students and the teachers. We want to eliminate that burden from them. That's why we have an AP coordinator for its purpose. And then it would shift the work to the administrative assistant, and it creates a balance. Yeah.
It would be what, a PO, invoice, and then some sort of acknowledgement of the receipt of goods and services, right? That's the really matters.
Yeah.
So all you're really asking them to do is to say, yes, I got this.
Correct. And then they also sign off on it to indicate that they have.
They do read that much receipt.
Yeah, they do.
Yes, so that's what, that's at the school level.
They already do that.
Right, coming up to you guys, and you already have the purchase order in you. Do you know what it should cost too?
Right, so when items are received at the schools, they're unboxed, they're signed off, checked off, then a copy of that gets sent to you. Or to
Yes. Yes.
And sometimes that can take a long time, relatively long time, because some of the products could be coming piecemeal. They're going multiple.
Yeah, they're all.
Is that, I've never heard the term three-way match before. Okay, so is that considered a three-way that they're receiving it building? Because it doesn't get centrally processed when it's sent out.
But usually there's some sort of like, I don't wanna call it certificate, but there's something in the system that says, we have not received this, so it's like an official acknowledgement of either the service being performed or the asset being delivered.
Got it, so we take the signed copy of the shipping, and that goes into the file, gets scanned into it, put into it, but there's not a checkbox somewhere there.
In the system, no, it's not. Right.
So it's really the munis process versus the process we're moving, but it's
And whether it would be more efficient for that person at school who's receiving the goods or whatever they are, to go in and be able to check something, then have to look at a piece of paper and send it back to you.
But they're all, they have to look at that to make sure they have it.
Yeah,
Right.
it's- yeah,
That's, well, the PO must be consistent too.
yes, it is.
Okay, 4B, contract storage TCM. Implementing TCM will require additional license and training costs. We will conduct a cost benefit analysis in the spring this year. And if favorable, we'll move forward in year 27. We put that in.
It's not budget.
That's what
We did get a code,
Okay,
Yeah.
that'd be good to know. One of the things I was curious about this, TCM contract storage, can you search digitally or is it just PDFs that you gotta go to contract management?
So the private content management for purchasing, we would have to go into that module and actually click on, there's not a search button.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm not sure about, the contract portion of
okay,
it.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
That'd be a great win if you could get something that you can search it, but.
Yeah, I love the search, engine as well.
Yeah. My understanding that Munis is still it's a module based system, you pay annually for each of the modules that you use, so it's not a one time, it's a.
It's a recurring cost. Yes.
4C dashboard automated tracking and reporting. Again, we'll look at it, do a cost benefit analysis in the spring, and then we'll see.
This first of the spring.
Is,
This,
Summer.
this spring, summer. I'll rephrase that within the next 90 days.
Yeah, thank you, right, it's spring.
And then finding number 5, there's no fully trained backup for the AP coordinator. We agree, and we have designated a backup coordinator, and the person is very knowledgeable about the whole process and risk. So minimal training would be required.
going back to training, because there was a comment in the CLA thing that said that they had talked to people and they felt like they needed more additional training and refreshing and that kind of thing. Is there, and I noticed you didn't really address it in your management comments. Is that something that you're looking at doing to maybe have a refresher for people to make sure that they do feel like they know how the system works and are using it properly?
So we do meet, we have a meeting at the end of the year to just discuss the processes. We can expand that further and offer classes, training classes for just how to get around Munis. We're happy to, do that, expand that annual meeting to something like that for sure.
Yeah, and make sure that everybody does.
We've had a little turnover too in some important spots.
So maybe that was,
So we're going to think about, some more opportunities that it has. Munis does have a few different, do they still do some meetings and trainings in different spots?
Yeah, we do have,
Use groups.
yeah,
Yeah.
normally.
and
it's,
you require
online.
people to attend them? Like if you make it voluntary, sometimes it's the ones that don't come are the ones that really need
Yeah,
it.
some people love being trained.
And then the ones
Yeah.
that don't come are the ones that really need to be trained.
Our folks, we'll have to look at it, I mean, folks are pretty good about it generally. But they'd also love to be at work, right, so it's that balance, so that's been worthwhile, but yeah, it's definitely worth looking at. And the user groups can be great, because I'm still in a Power School user group from 20 years ago when I was a tech. Because they ask questions to the group and they're able to resolve and get questions out. But I do think some of the changes have been very good in the purchasing department and HR with both Joanne with a couple of other changes that we made, so.
Regina.
Yeah, Regina, that's nice. So, yeah, we'll talk to them about training. We'd like to do that.
Yes, have further queries?
No, but no, I think that's what's mine.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, go ahead, good, so,
Okay.
I'm just.
Alright, I just want to confirm my understanding, and again, sort of the review of the munis roles and approval levels, and I know you said here, purchases exceeding 25,000 require secondary approval by the director of finance. I think you said anything over like 5 requires 2 people, right?
It's 10, No, it's 10,000, I'm sorry, 25,000 for anywhere between 0 to 24,999 for administrators. And then it goes to Sean, 25,000 to 49,999, and then it goes to Brian.
Okay, so I guess the administrator who's like loading it up, that's effectively, they're kind of, I don't want to call it approval, but they're putting it in, and then somebody in central offices, so like you're the one who's looking at it, right? Okay.
So it typically would be the administrator at the schools, for example, principal. Right.
So for
And
example,
there's-
it's under 25,000,
Yeah,
getting a
Yeah.
secondary.
Right, because it's not, they're not typically the ones making the purchase either, it's an apartment share, it's a teacher, it's whatever, so maybe it's a textbooks or what, so the principal isn't. You know, it's the person do at the ground level doing the work who has the need of the supply.
Right.
They're then going to the building's finance person, that which then goes to the principal for approval again before it even comes to us. Right, so generally, it's not, like principals are generally not spending money on things like that, they just don't have the same, they don't have those needs, they don't have instructional, they're not buying textbooks, it's. Right, it's teachers and the folks.
Just to be clear on when the administrators approve it, it does go to the business office for review and approval and release of that requisition to be converted to PO. So there is that secondary that you're referring to.
Yeah.
So that there is. I was just talking about thresholds, but the final approval of the requisition and conversion sits in our office. Yes.
Okay. Do you guys have any thoughts of, I mean, I've typically seen approval levels. You know, people move around, they get different jobs and stuff, so you don't wanna have names, but you just have like titles that says, you know, these titles can approve at this level, these titles can approve, and that way. You don't have to, you know, people are moving around, you thought of that at all?
I think that's what we were saying as far as the purchasing workflow. That's what we would include in the manual,
Okay.
where we would say again.
By title.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Got it.
What it's worth, when we do receive donations from the community and others, and so there are different thresholds around that, so. Anything above $5,000 goes to the Board of Ed for approval. Above, is it 2,500 to 5,000 needs my approval, things like that too, so there are
This is
other controls around. This is prior to receiving any donation that then goes towards. Yes, just, I know we're talking 2550, but there are other thresholds based on the purpose of the flow.
This, not the policy, but I'm gonna call it the manual or the procedures. Is that sort of one document or have you broken it up into a series of documents?
It's a series of documents.
Got it.
So if it's relating to a vendor,
Right.
that would be one series, right? If it's requisition, that would be another series.
Okay,
But we can combine it, but it's easier to manage if it's in series.
no, I get it, I just. I mean, it'd be good to have one. I don't think we've seen that one, I think just for, yeah, so
No,
if we get a copy of the,
Is it?
at your convenience, yeah.
Happy to.
The other thing, but again, at your convenience, can you get, I'm sure you find on the web. Get copies of that, you talked about the Connecticut Federation of Ethics Guides or whatever it is. Oh, sure. Yeah, that'd be great.
I just have a general question. If you looked at your software. And you had your wish list. What enhancements would you be looking for?
would we prioritize?
Yeah,
I think the DCM has a lot of problems that can be used for multiple things. So I would say that's probably one.
I agree.
and how would that help?
It would help us in managing contracts when
Right.
contracts expire. We lose services that was allowed to expire. And just ease of, looking at contracts electronically. Because right now it's somewhat manual, it's PDF based.
So what would be the cost, do you know what the cost would be? They would.
That's You got a quote, but you're still better.
Yeah, so right now I have a quote of 8,000, but we wanted to find out if that what that includes. Is that just the moduling itself? Does it include any training, implementation?
Typically, with me,
So
there's a cost of the software,
Right.
cost to install,
right, so that's what
training cost.
is it all
maybe
comprehensive?
2 day stay at a hotel. They're typically coming from Maine.
Seriously?
Yeah, there's a lot of munis people in Maine.
Interesting.
It's nice when you're on the market.
Anything else? Okay, well, I think, so I think from our, first of all, thank you for taking the time to do this. I don't think we were expecting this, but I think it's a very useful guide, and I think at the end of the day, you know, we want to support you as much as possible, but you guys have to own like the checklist, right? So that, you know, I think you'll need to create, you've got these goals here and with, you know, some target completion dates, but I think you should probably convert that into almost like a checklist and like maybe little status things that you get proud of.
Yeah,
Right,
So.
just to close the loop.
Yeah, so that we can periodically talk through that with you.
that's what.
And I think there were a couple of other open items that we just. Yeah, sure.
Are your thoughts to meet again in 4 months or 5 months or?
It might be the kind of thing where, you know, they'll circulate to it, and if things look like it's all on track, or maybe we do it as part of, it might be the kind of thing we do it as a little add-on to the audit.
Right.
So that might be better, so.
And my question is that, you know, these are voluminous procedures manuals, you're just going to send it. Does it make sense to defer that until you incorporate some of
That's
this
fine,
into that and we'll look at it once? Does that make sense?
that's fine, I think.
Because we're only talking 6 months at the other side.
Yeah.
We'll be working with LNG as we make adjustments possible.
And then you're gonna circle back with CLA just to make sure that, you know, you've not missed anything or they vehemently disagree with something like that. Yeah.
And so we just, by way of background, so this was the school meeting. We've got a meeting with Tam early next week. And then the thinking was that depending on the schedules, we probably have I don't think you guys would have to be here, but we'd have a special full audit committee, just almost a report out for the other members. I'm not so sure they did it. I mean, it would be more about us reporting out to, you know, the committee, so.
I mean, it'll probably, as part of that committee will also be the regular kind of updates,
Right.
so.
Right, so for like the Board of Ed, we'll
Yeah.
have periodic committee updates that go to the full board for
Right.
governance and that, and they'll just give a quick 3-minute overview. If the, was it CLA, if CLA is coming to present, we certainly.
I don't imagine,
I don't know.
I think we'll be there.
We always know scheduling is like trying to schedule a visit to the Pope during Operation Desert Storm.
Could have done without the an hour and a half in the dentist chair this morning.
Oh,
That
yeah.
one, that-
You're not doing well, if somebody's got a
Oh,
problem.
I it was a fun ride in trying. Good feeling that, so, but yeah, so thanks, Jim.
All right, so we're done, I think, and then any other, getting back to the agenda then, I think we probably already covered off and for the discussion for the next steps, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did it right too.
Any other business? Okay, so someone want to make the motion to close the meeting? All right, the meeting is closed. Thank you. Thank you.
So much. Oh, my pleasure.
And the